Okay, uh, welcome to the class. Now we'll be discussing wrought alloys part 3. Until now, we have gone through the basic properties of wrought wire alloys, every material aspect, and coming to the individual, we have finished completing stainless steel. Now, stainless steel, only a few parts is left, that is how the stainless steel gets corroded, we have learned, and now how is the corrosion resistance developed, that we will know, that is by sensitization and stabilization. So let's get into the topic. So previously we have discussed that there is some kind of concentration cell corrosions, electrochemical and galvanic corrosion happening in the stainless steel. And other than that, when the austenite stainless steel or the austenite stainless steel is subjected to 400 to 900 degrees temperature, so what happens, there will be degradation of iron chromium carbide particles. So there will be precipitation of these particles along the grain boundaries. So when this iron chromium carbide will get precipitated, there won't be any chromium left over free to form the passivating layer. So chromium is depleted near the grain boundaries below the concentrations that is necessary for protection. So thus it makes the metal more susceptible to intergranular corrosion and partial degradation. That is what is called as sensitization. Okay, now how do you deal with it? One thing is, what is happening there, the free chromium is getting used up and converted to carbide. So that is why you are blocking the carbon content, so you are reducing the carbon content of the steel. So to an extent possible, you can avoid the sensitization to occur. That is one possible means. Other is the cold work and heating within the sensitization temperature range, so that the iron chromium carbide precipitate at dislocations rather than grain boundaries. So because of the cold working, the iron chromium carbide which is present, it is forming near to the dislocation or the slip plane rather than the grain boundaries, so that there won't be any intergranular corrosion. The third possible and the best possible thing is addition of titanium or tantalum, which has more affinity for carbide, so that the titanium carbide or tantalum carbide is formed instead of chromium carbide, so freeing up the chromium, so preserving the chromium. Thus this process is called as stabilization process. Okay, so what is the method of sensitization? What is happening? Formation of iron chromium carbide. In order to combat that, another method with the addition of titanium or tantalum, which has more affinity for the carbides. So this process is called as stabilization. So we have completed with the stainless steel, all the aspects of the stainless steel. Now we are heading to the next alloy, that is cobalt chromium nickel alloy. It's originally developed as for use as a hot spring. It is popularly called as an alloy, and it has got excellent resistance to tarnish and corrosion, and at the same time it utilizes the same welding and soldering procedures that are used for the stainless steel, and it is available in 4 tempers, that is soft, ductile and semi-resilient and resilient, out of which the soft is the most used form. It is also called as the alloy blue. Okay, and this alloy blue, it will have the same workable consistencies like the stainless steel, but because of having a lower elastic modulus, it will have a soft feel while working, and because of the lower yield strength. Okay, so because of this, it is more workable when compared to the stainless steel. This is one property which we can prefer, because of which we can prefer this alloy to the stainless steel. Next, coming to nickel titanium alloys. They are popularly called as the nitinol alloy. It is developed in 1970s. It is nitinol because nickel titanium, NOL means Naval Ordnance Laboratory, where it is being discovered. So it has got lower elastic modulus, higher working range, and the composition is 55% nickel and 45% titanium by weight, and traces of cobalt, copper and chromium. As in the stainless steel, there are 2 forms. Every alloy will have phase transformations and forms. So here the austenite nitride phase is body centered cubic, whereas martensitic nitride has got a distorted monoclinic, triclinic and hexagonal structure. So neither it can be welded or soldered. So this is a negative point of this. So because the rough surface due to friction is present with this alloy, so it takes a longer time for this treatment to happen with this kind of alloy. Okay, so remember one thing, every austenite may not be a body centered cubic, every martensite cannot be a face centered cubic. Depending upon the alloy, either it can be a stainless steel or a nitide, this kind of the crystal lattice will vary, so keep that in mind. Now coming to phase transformation, there are three important properties for a nitide alloy. One is phase transformation, because of which you'll get other two important properties, that is super elasticity and the shape memory. Now what is phase transformation? Here first it is available as an austenite form, isn't it? So whenever there is a rise in temperature or stress is nothing but because of working or cold working, because of manipulation, something, there will be a dislocation or plastic deformation occurring. What is the process you already gone through? It can be because of the defects or because of the twinning or in the polycrystalline some other aspect. Okay, so here the twinning, that is change in the crystallographic orientation is happening, getting converted to martensite, so because of which there is change in volume and electrical resistance. Now what is this super elasticity? Okay, this graph explains everything about the superelasticity or pseudoelasticity. This is a stress strain behavior of nitide alloy while it is bending, where this A to B portion corresponds to the initial elastic deformation of the wire, whereas this B to C will show you the phase transformation, that is from austenitic to the martensitic structure. So after the point C, so when there is a transformation or where there is an increased stress, what happens is there is further elastic deformation along with plastic deformation, that is a bending movement will occur along C to D. So now this upper portion is done. Now what happens when it is unloaded? That is the down one. During unloading, the sequence is completely reversed. Okay, where the D to E corresponds to the loss of the elastic strain. That is what happens, because when you are removing the stress or the force, it is again regaining back only the elastic portion, not the plastic. Okay, and followed by transformation back to the austenitic structure along E to F. And from F to G, this elastic strain is coming back to 0. So there is small amount of permanent angular defection which is remaining in the wire because of permanent deformation induced, that is called as superelasticity or the pseudoelasticity. That means that from C to D there is both elastic and plastic deformation has occurred, but D to E there is only the elastic recovery but not the plastic recovery. So there is some kind of enlargement or permanent deformation has occurred. That is nothing but the superelasticity or the pseudoelasticity. Is it clear now? Next, coming to the next property, shape memory. So we already know that there is phase transformation. Usually austenite will be present at 480 degrees centigrade when it is manufactured, but it is converting to room temperature, it is getting converted to martensite by twinning. So it is getting twinned to convert to martensite. So after that, at the room temperature, when it is undergoing some kind of manipulation by the clinician or working or cold working, then what happens, it is getting again retwinned or reshaped to austenite form, because of which there will be some kind of tooth movement happening because of the release of this energy, because of conversion of this martensite to artensite. So desired tooth movement will be happening. So the temperature at which it induces the conversion from the detwinned martensite to artensite is called as the transformation temperature. Okay, see, well, let's go through a small photograph. See here, it's a twinned austenite which on cooling to room temperature gets converted to martensite, which on deformation or working gets converted to martensite, and this deformed martensites on heating gets converted to austenite. And because of this changing or twinning and detwinning, the energy that is there which is getting converted to the energy that is required for tooth movement. So that is why nitide alloys are used for inducing the tooth movement in orthodontic wires as orthodontic wires. Okay. Now next, coming to the next alloy, that is beta titanium. It is the commercially pure titanium exists in a stable hexagonal closely packed crystal structure at room temperature, that is temperatures below 882 degrees centigrade, and above which it occurs as a stable body centered cubic structure. Okay, it usually exists in two forms, alpha and beta. Why alpha and beta? Because it is basically the content or the metals which are present in it that determines this form. Okay, so certain elements like the aluminum, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen will stabilize the alpha form, whereas for stabilization of the beta form you have to add vanadium, molybdenum and tantalum. Okay, so it is usually occurring as an alloy, that is titanium Ti6Al4V is most popular, and it can be in alpha or beta. As we already know, there is phase transformations in most of the metals we have read till now. There is no austenite and martensite here. We will be dealing with alpha and beta forms here. Okay, so beta titanium, it is more preferable to the alpha titanium. Why? Because the addition of molybdenum in the beta titanium at room temperature, and it yields a lower elastic modulus and higher ductility than that of the alpha. So if it has got higher ductility, so it can be drawn to thin wires. It is used to get the desired tooth movement and applications in the dentistry. So that is why this beta titanium is more popular in the dentistry, in a commercial name called as titanium molybdenum alloy. It's also called as a TMA alloy, trade name. Okay, so the corrosion resistance is also here is because of formation of titanium oxide. There what we have read, it is because of the formation of chromium oxide, like in case of passivation. But here the dominant is a titanium metal, so it is called as a titanium oxide formation, which prevents the oxide layer formation. And only alloy that is nickel free is a beta titanium alloy. And one of the most important properties is that it is truly weldable. It is truly weldable. None other metal we have read till now is truly weldable. Okay, so this is the basic thing regarding the beta titanium alloys. So till now we have gone through stainless steel, cobalt, chromium, nickel, titanium, and this beta titanium alloys. These are the most important alloys which are routinely used in practice in dentistry. Other than this, there are additional wrought alloys which are of noble metals. Basically they are from noble metals, either cast metal, but they are brought to a workable consistency or a wrought consistency. Usually the crude metal is a direct filling gold, which is, I think it's already been covered in the conservative classes. And the other two are the platinum gold palladium and palladium silver copper, which is of less interest for the UG section, so I have not mentioned much regarding it. So additional wrought alloys, if somebody asks, you have to mention these two alloys which are from the gold alloy derivatives. Okay, gold metal or direct filling gold. And the direct filling gold chapter, I guess it's been covered in the conservative part, the gold foil technique, combination, condensations, everything. Okay, now let's checklist everything what we have done till now for wrought alloys. We have read about the definition, the manufacture process of the wrought alloys, the applications or the uses, the properties of the wrought alloys like ductility, malleability, biocompatibility, joinability. The stress strain graph will show certain properties like strength, resilience, spring back, isn't it? So everything we have learned. And then deflections, dislocations and defects like the point line defects, twinning mechanisms, and polycrystalline elements, what is slip system, slip plane. So why these are important? Because you have to have a plasticity of the material. The ductility of the material is only possible because of this dislocations. Okay, so that is indeed needed. So in addition to that, you have to strengthen the metal. That is why you will add certain grain refinements, and the process is called as strain hardening. What are the effects of strain hardening? What are the positive and negative effects? How can we combat the negative effects like decrease its ductility and corrosion resistance. How it is done? Because a process called as annealing, and then annealing stages till where you have to done the annealing, and then coming to the individual sections like stainless steel, cobalt, chromium, nickel, and their uses, nitrile alloys, the specific properties like the shape memory, super elasticity, and the beta titanium, where it is only metal which can be welded. Okay, so up to now we have finished the topic of wrought alloys. So if you have any queries, just contact us. Thank you for your patience listening.